Our first speaker is going to be Moulana Sayyid Rizwan Rizvi, who was born in a family of ulama in Hyderabad, Pakistan. His father, Moulana Sayyid Tilmiz Hasnain Rizvi, migrated from India with his grandfather. In the early 1990s, their family migrated to the United States. His schooling was done here in the state of New Jersey, and he graduated from high school in '98. And since early childhood, our respected alim has had the inclination and desire to attend the Hawza Ilmiya for extensive Islamic studies. He started his religious studies in Chicago, Illinois, in the Imam Ali Seminary, where he studied for 1 year. Thereafter, he attended the Islamic Seminary of Qum in 2000 and studied under some of the best renowned theologians of the Hawza. After completing general coursework in Arabic literature, jurisprudence, Quranic exegesis, principles of usul, kalam, and mantiq, Moulana Rizwan focused his attention towards Islamic philosophy and during the latter part of his studies on Irfan-e-Islami. Throughout his 6 years of studies at the Hawza, Moulana received his bachelor's in theology and philosophy. And following his studies in Qum, he traveled to Damascus and enrolled in advanced Arabic studies at the Damascus University's Arabic Language Institute, and completely immersed himself in such an environment. During his stay in Syria, he also periodically traveled to the United States and lectured at various Islamic centers. He was the resident alim of the Islamic Masumin Center of New England and is currently the resident alim here at Masjid-e-Ali alayhi salam. Mu'mineen, mu'minat, help me welcome Moulana Sayyid Rizwan Rizvi with the loudest of your salawat.
أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وما آتاكم الرسول فخذوه وما نهاكم عنه فانتهوا واتقوا الله إن الله شديد العقاب صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات ديج محمد وآل محمد. Respected scholars, dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I just wanted to, first of all, welcome everyone over here. As being the resident alim over here, I want to take this opportunity for all those people who have traveled long distances, short distances, to come and join us in this auspicious event that we are celebrating, the wiladat rather, of Rasul Akram sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam. The verse that I recited is from Surah Hashr, verse number 7, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, take whatever the apostle gives you and relinquish whatever he forbids you. And be wary of Allah, indeed Allah is severe in retribution. From here we can understand this verse of Quran is telling us how the seerah of Rasulullah is very important. Alongside with the teachings that are coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the seerah of Rasulullah is just as important because this particular verse is telling us that whatever Prophet has given to you, hold on to it, and whatever he has forbidden you from, stay away from that. So here it becomes incumbent upon us to go ahead and delve into the teachings of Rasulullah so that we can see and implement them into our lives. Today, inshallah, you will hear many speakers. They'll talk about the legacy of Rasulullah in details. And I will only focus about the seerah of Rasulullah from Quran. How Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned Rasulullah in Quran and how we can understand the seerah of Rasulullah only through the verses of Quran. We see that in Surah Ahzab, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. That indeed in the Messenger of God is certainly a good example for those of you who have hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and in the day of judgment. And also in one of the very renowned books, Musnad Ahmad ibn Hanbal, it is narrated in regards to Rasulullah from An Sa'id Khudri, Abi Sa'id. He says, rather Abi Sa'id quotes it, إِنِّي تَارِكُمْ فِيكُمُ الثَّقَلَيْنِ كِتَابُ اللَّهِ وَحَبْلٌ مَمْدُودٌ. It says, أَحَدُهُمَا أَكْبَرُ min al-akhir, that indeed I'm leaving behind you two weighty things. One of them is bigger than the other. Kitabullahi hablum mamdud min as-sama'i ila al-ard. The book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is connected, mamdud, with string or with this rope from asman, from skies to the earth. Wa itrati ahl bayti, and also my progeny, my family members. Wa innahuma lan yaftariqa hatta yarida alayya al-hawd. and they both will not separate from one another until they reach me at the Hawd, at the pond of Kawthar. So these are all in regards to, as far as the hadith is concerned, what the ulama and the scholars have said. The blessed name of Rasulullah, which is Muhammad, literally means the most praised, or simply the one who's praised. We see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves Prophet Muhammad more than the rest of the creation, and he mentions that in Quran as well, that he described Rasulullah to be rahmatan lil alameen, mercy unto the universe. The revelation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala further explained to mankind the qualities of the beloved Prophet of Islam, being the lamp that gives light, siraj and munira. He's described by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the tremendous example for believers, and the coming of Rasulullah as a favor onto the believers. We see that the learned scholars therefore explain that in the sunnah, the way of Rasulullah, the life of Rasulullah, includes all actions, sayings, habits, qualities, characters, morals, manners, approval and disapproval from the seal of the Messenger, Huzur Akram sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Minutes, I will try and concisely explain all of these verses that I have brought in front of you, that I want to explain the Seerat of Rasulullah from Quran. Beautifully recited initially by our Qari, the verses from Surah Al-Duha, which also talk about some of the aspects of Rasulullah's life. Those verses were translated, so I'm not going to go in the details of it. Features of the Prophet from Quran. Let's look at that for an example. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala considers this to be a favor upon the mu'mineen. The wujud of Rasulullah among the people is a favor of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When he says, لَقَدْ مَنَّ اللَّهُ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ إِذْ بَعَثَ فِيهِمْ رَسُولٌ. That indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has done a favor upon the people when he raised among them a Rasul. Two sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala which are continuously repeated in Quran on many occasions, Ra'uf and Rahim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the same sifat and the attributes for Rasulullah in Surah Tawbah verse 128 when he says, لَقَدْ جَاءَكُمْ رَسُولٌ مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ عَزِيزٌ عَلَيْهِ مَا عَنِتُّمْ حَرِيصٌ عَلَيْكُمْ بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ رَؤُوفٌ رَحِيمٌ. That the Rasul is Ra'uf, compassionate, and Rahim, and merciful as well. We see that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by the town known as Makkah, it is for the reason when he says, La uqsimu bihadha al-balad, it is for the very reason because of the wujud and the existence of Rasulullah in that particular town. If we occasionally send salawat on Rasulullah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and as well as the angels of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are continuously sending their salawat and durood on Rasulullah when they say, Inna Allaha wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi ya ayyuhalladhina amanu sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala counts the worldly possessions to be very little. He says, Mata'ud dunya qaleel. But when he talks about the khulq and the characteristic of Rasulullah, he says, Innaka ala khuluqin azim. We have raised you. You are on the highest status of the khulq as far as the character is concerned. Quran calls upon Rasulullah in this fashion. It says, Shahidan wa mubashiran wa nadhiran wa da'iyan ila Allahi wa sirajan munira. The verses of Surah Ahzab, that you are witness, you give glad tidings, you warn people, you call them towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, your lamp which is providing the light and which is lit all the time itself. The closest anyone has gotten to the bargah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you want to call it, because I don't want to say closest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because everyone is close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rather, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is close to everyone. But if you want to look at it from that perspective, it says, ثُمَّ دَنَا فَتَدَلَّى وَكَانَ قَابَ قَوْسَيْنِ أَوْ أَدْنَى in Surah Najm. That this is how close the Prophet was, that the distance of one bow and arrow to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as far as the speech is concerned. It says, as far as the speech is concerned of Rasulullah, وَمَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. His speech is also masoon عَنِ الْخَطَىٰ. He's masoom in this regards, that whatever he says, it is from the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nothing that he utters from himself. Whatever he sees, his nigah, his Sight is also masoon anil khata, does not commit errors. Ma zagha al-basar wa ma tagha. Again in Surah Najm as well. The heart and the ruh of Rasulullah is also ma'asum in the same regards. When Allah says in Surah Najm, verse number 11, Ma kadhaba al-fu'adu ma ra'a, that his heart does not lie to him, or his heart is not lying as to what he is seeing. Quran discusses Prophet alongside with Allah. Wherever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions his attributes, Rasulullah is also being mentioned alongside with him. He says when he talks about that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the honor and the izzat belongs to Allah. It says, وَلِلَّهِ الْعِزَّةِ, the honor belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It also says, وَلِرَسُولِهِ as well. Surah Munafiqun, verse number 8. That izzat and honor belongs to Allah. All of the izzat and honor belongs to Allah, and also it belongs to Rasulullah. We see that the itaat and the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the way it is wajib, it says ati'ullah wa ati'ur rasul as well. Wherever you have to do the itaat of Allah, you also have to do the itaat of Rasulullah. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is calling, Rasulullah also calls. You got to reply to the call of both Allah and Rasulullah. It says, Istajibu lillahi walir rasul. Reply and say labbaik to the call of Allah, as well as alongside with it, the labbaik to the call of Rasulullah as well. Khuda, Allah and Rasulullah, both of them, mu'mineen, are the ones, yunsurun Allah wa rasulahu. Those are the people who go ahead and help Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but also help Rasulullah as well. Ma'asiyat and sinning and disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also connected and also mentioned alongside with disobedience of Rasulullah as well, when it says, وَمَنْ يَعْصِ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ. Whoever disobeys Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also disobeys Rasulullah as well. Whenever harming or sending any sort of discomfort towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is counted, it is also counted for Rasulullah as well. It says, الَّذِينَ يُؤْذُونَ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ. Those who give adiyah to Allah, they're also giving adiyah to Rasulullah. This is in Surah Ahzab, verse number 57. We see that as far as the Rasul is concerned, he's the embodiment of Quran himself. We look at some of the verses as well as some of the ahadith in this regards, which is agreed upon by all the schools of thought, that Quran on the day of judgment will be acting as the shafi', as the intercessor for the mu'mineen. It says, Ni'mu shafi' al-Quran li sahibihi yawm al-qiyamah. The best intercessor for anyone on the day of judgment will be this Quran. Rasulullah said about himself, Ana awwalu shafi'in. I am also one of the first ones who will be doing the shafa'at and the intercession. In Quran, we see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala counts Quran to be nadhiran lil alameen nadhira. When he says, Tabarakalladhi nazzala al-furqana ala abdihi liyakuna lil alameen nadhira. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed this Furqan so that it could be a warning for the people, for all of the universe. It says in regards to Rasulullah, nadhiran lil alameen, that he is the warning for all of the alameen as well. Quran is considered to be nasihat and maw'idah. It is giving us this nasihat and advices and exhortation. Maw'idatum min rabbikum. In Surah Yunus it says, Rasulullah is also wal maw'idatul hasana, as Amirul Mu'mineen mentions in Nahjul Balagha, khutbah number 109. Quran is the best of the guidance. It says, Yahdi lillati hiya aqwam. In Surah Bani Israel, verse number 9, Amirul Mu'mineen counts in khutbah number 110 of Nahjul Balagha, وَاقْتَدُوا بِهَدْيِ نَبِيِّكُمْ فَإِنَّهُ أَفْضَلُ الْحَدْيِ وَاسْتَنُّوا بِسُنَّتِهِ فَإِنَّهَا أَحْدَى السُّنَنِ. He says the Rasulullah, he himself is the best of the hidayat, and follow the sunnah of Rasulullah because it is the best of the sunnah that there is. Quran, looking at Quran is considered to be ibadat. An-nazaru fil mushafi ibadah. Looking at Rasulullah is also ibadah. He says, An-nazaru ilayya ibadah. He himself is saying about himself. Quran is considered to be the rahmat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَنَزَّلْنَا عَلَيْكَ الْكِتَابِ تِبْيَانًا لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ وَهُدًى وَرَحْمَةً. That Quran is considered to be rahmah for the people. Rasulullah is also considered to be وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. So both are in this regard considered to be rahmat. Quran is nur. وَأَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكُمْ نُورًا مُبَيِّنًا. That we revealed unto you this book, which is nur, which is a clear nur. Rasulullah is also referred in the eyes of Ma'sumin, that Assalamu alayka ya Nur Allah, peace be upon you, O the Nur of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Quran is the Imam. It says, alaykum bil Quran fattakhadhuhu imama. Hadith says, it is upon you that you should take this Quran to be your guide. Rasulullah says, wa ana imamul muttaqeen. I am also the guide for those who are muttaqeen. Whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about Quran, the heart in which there's Quran, He said, la yu'adhibu Allahu qalban wa'al Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not send adhab on the heart upon which there's Quran and the light of Quran is there. It also says, وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيُعَذِّبَهُمْ وَأَنْتَ فِيهِمْ. Surah Anfal, verse number 33. Rasul, we will not send adhab on these people just because you are in between them. Just the way Quran is in the hearts of the people and is lightening them up, the same way if the wujud of Rasulullah is among the people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not send adhab on those individuals. We see that we can look at the Seerat of Rasulullah just by looking at the verses of Quran and how the whole Quran is actually reciting the qasida of the beloved Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Thank you very much for paying attention to the arais that I was explaining and the ayat that I have mentioned, all of them from the verses revealed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala onto Habib-e Ilahi Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.